Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Don Mafia Report. The Buffalo Bills have their full 2025 NFL draft class. And today I wanted to hop on here for a special Saturday evening episode where we go pick by pick and we give individual grades. And then we ultimately end up coming together for a unique grade, right? Like, did we think Brandon Beane ended up putting in enough effort and put in enough moves to really help the Buffalo Bills get over the hump? Now, say, for example, you guys follow me on TikTok or X or Instagram. You could have just seen the short video that I just released. And I'll tell you exactly what I did. I ended up muting the comment section for it because I have a feeling that I'm probably one of the few content creators on this app right now that feels that this draft class was a little underwhelming. Don't get me wrong. I think that we do have some slam dunk home run picks. Really, really do. However, going in to this draft period, I really wanted the Buffalo Bills to accomplish three things. Number one, with particular positions, I did not want project players. I did not want a player that could transition to a different responsibility on the defensive line that would take a training camp period, a year or two. I didn't want a player that would have to have a learning curve to understand the system. And I wanted the Bills to prioritize players that came from a similar background that could be plugged and played and immediately implemented from the beginning. And I think that there was a couple of moves in this draft that I was sitting there kind of scratching my head. Number two, I wanted us to be a bit more aggressive as far as moving up for specific players. Like, I sit here and I count, right? And let me double check this. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think that it's pretty much been a trend for us where we have said that more than likely the Buffalo Bills are only going to roster, say, 5, 6 players from this draft class in general, but we still end up walking away with 9. So a lot of these selections based off of where the depth chart currently stands as well was just using draft compensation that exclusively is just going to be awarded for camp bodies. I think that there were a couple of prospects in the wide receiver department that we completely missed on that we probably should have drafted rather than some of the selections that we ended up going after. I'm still kind of dumbfounded that we didn't go for a safety as well, somebody that could particularly excel right in coverage. Like, I could get us waiting a little bit, but like walking away with not having a player that plays that position whatsoever is not ideal, especially since Cole Bishop is the only one that's currently on the roster that is going to be on the Buffalo Bills in 2026. A bunch of expiring contracts there. But I still like a couple of players on this team that I think will be number one contributors. So without further ado, let's go on ahead and dive in to each and every single player. We're going to talk about it one by one. Guys, as you are coming in, I just crossed 41,000 subscribers. Thank you so much. If, for example, you enjoy my show and you enjoy the content, please smash that like button for me. It's the easiest way to show love over here. I'm trying to get as many Bills fans in here as possible so we can really chop this up. And as many of you know, my sentiments toward this class are a bit, I'd say, sort of sad and underwhelmed. So hopefully by the time that we get over to the chat portion where I exclusively focus on it's my live chat audience to take control of the episode. Hopefully some of you can talk me off of a ledge here, but I'm pretty much standing pat. But anyway, we're starting off with the first pick, 30th overall in the first round. And the Buffalo Bills decided to take Max Harrison. Love this pick. Love this pick. As many of you know, I was a big Kenneth Grant guy. I wanted Kenneth Grant. And so I wanted Tyleek Williams. But as we know, so our bitter rival, the Miami Dolphins, ended up selecting Kenneth Grant with the 13th overall selection. And then we also ended up seeing Tyleek Williams sneak into the first round for the Detroit Lions. And then I ultimately ended up looking at the corners that were available, right? Like you had a Will Johnson, who many doctors are suggesting that his knee has a lot of red flags. And quite a few people were concerned that he's not going to be very a long and successful career within the NFL. Way too many red flags there. So I understand why we passed on him. I also understand why we ended up passing on Siobhan Revell, for example. I also understand why we passed on some of these other cornerback prospects. And Max Harrison, as you do remember, for me, fits the mold as far as somebody that is likely not going to have much of a learning curve because he comes from a zone scheme. And the goal from Buffalo here, folks, was that we wanted somebody that could continue to add to the identity of the Buffalo Bills for leading the league in overall turnover differential, right? Like we want that guy. A lot of people are concerned about his tackling issues. For me, I'm not so much concerned about tackling. He is a willing tackler, as Bruce Exclusive says beautifully and eloquently all the time. As long as you are willing to tackle, that is something that can be coached up. Things that Max Harrison does very well are not coachable, right? It's either you have them or you do not. And he has that elite speed. So if any of us are worried about going up against the Xavier Worthies of the world anymore, or the Tyreek Hills of the world anymore, this is going to be a guy that's going to be able to line up against those wide receivers and run side by side with them. And he has the ball skills that can also capitalize on it. So based off of what was available right here, the Maxwell Harrison pick for me is an A. It's an A. It's not quite an A plus because I'm being stingy with my grades as I am giving them out. But Max Harrison for me, that is a resounding A for me. Now, next up, fasten your seatbelts because this is where it gets wrong. Okay. Next up, it's TJ Sanders from South Carolina. Now, I do want to preface this by saying, right, he's a good player. He's a very, very good player. But the problem with TJ Sanders is that he is a 3-tech defensive tackle. And I understand that some people are going to be like, oh, damn, but he can play 1-tech. He has played 1-tech before. He's predominantly a 3-tech. He has been. And if you remember the beginning of this episode, I said that for 3 specific position groups, I needed to make sure that there was no, oh, but he could develop, or, oh, he could change over and learn the position, or, oh, just give him a year or two and then he could be really good within that specific position. When you look at TJ Sanders, folks, where it stands right now, and training camp can change a lot of things, but where it stands right now, TJ Sanders is 3rd on the depth chart behind Ed Oliver, Dwayne Carter, and that's it. And then Daquan Jones, he is, at least during the time of that pick, is the exclusive nose tackle, 1-tech defensive tackle that was on said roster, who has an expiring contract in 2026. So going into the draft, that's all I wanted. That is all I wanted, was a big-bodied run stuffer that could really allow this team so to answer a lot of questions right on our defensive line, right? Because many people have been obsessing over, oh, yeah, like we need to mimic exactly what the Philadelphia Eagles did during the Super Bowl. It's different strokes for different folks, guys. It doesn't always work for other teams. It doesn't always work for other coaching staffs. It's not as easy, right? Because say that the Philadelphia Eagles' way of doing defense was so easy, wouldn't every team in the world be doing that right now? It's not just oh, we should be doing that. That's easy. Like that's a surefire way for us to make the Super Bowl. It's not as black and white as far as being able to take a specific scheme that a specific set of personnel and a specific coaching staff can bring to the table, right? It takes a very specific recipe. So how I look at it, when we got TJ Sanders, I was kind of like, okay, this TJ Sanders pick to me feels like the Buffalo Bills eventually want to move on from Ed Oliver. And Ed Oliver potentially could be released next offseason or traded next offseason. This is a future Ed Oliver replacement. This pick was a pick that told me that, all right, we kind of want to walk away from him here eventually, especially when his contract's cap implications don't get as significant, if you will. So that was a bit backwards for me here. Now, we did end up going with Deon Walker, and he's a one tech, yes. I like his size. He's 6'6". He's 345 pounds. I get that. That's cool. He fits the mold. But I also said going into it that I wanted to double dip at defensive tackle, but I wanted to double dip at the one tech defensive tackle position. And I said I would have loved Deon Walker and I would have been happy with Deon Walker, but only if he was the second player. And he was, but he is the first one tech that is taken off of the board. So my concern here is, say Daquan Jones ultimately ends up going off, because Deon Walker needs a bit of, I would say, a developmental period. Yes, I know he played with a fractured back last year in college. There's definitely a lot of upside, but there's some intangibles I think that he needs to work on. It's not really something I feel comfortable where like he could be in a heavy rotation with Daquan Jones at the early half of this season. I kind of wish that we would have went a different direction. I heard that he was considering putting Dwayne Carter like on as the one tech, like, but again, that is yet another developmental period. And that is yet another time where he needs to continue to learn. So I feel like both of the defensive tackle positions were backwards for me, but I hope it works out. I really, really do. Number 3, Landon Jackson. Love Landon Jackson. Love Landon Jackson. Luckily, the defensive end position, for me at least, was not one of those positions where I said, whatever we do, we have to make sure this person doesn't have a learning curve. I thought that we could end up drafting an edge rusher early that has a lot of potential, has a very high ceiling, but it's going to take him about a year or two to get there. He has gotten better and better and better since the time that he ended up releasing that one video that's been going viral on the internet of him in the bag drill. And he looked great, man. Like, there is tape of him dominating, okay? The one tackle out of Alabama who is projected to be the first offensive lineman off of the board next year in 2026. There's tape of him dominating Will Campbell, the 4th overall pick. He's got the size. He's an absolute stud. All right. Powder from the 90s movie is about to be going absolutely off. And say, for example, he gets 10 plus sacks, I will get his exact same haircut. That's my guy right there. Shout out to my boy. He's a stud. Love Landon Jackson. So I think that he's going to be incredible, especially when it comes into his developmental period. And my question marks around, how does AJ Epinesa have a spot on this roster? Are we shopping him around potentially? Who knows? Who knows? That is another situation. So the Landon Jackson pick for me was a B+. Love him, but I do think he's going to need like a year or two sort of really hit his ceiling. Maxwell Harrison is an A. I have TJ Sanders for me. And again, just before anybody gets too sensitive, I think TJ Sanders is a wonderful player, but I did not like that we had to trade up for technically a 3-tech defensive tackle, which where it stands today, folks, where it stands today is a 3rd on the depth chart, right within that responsibility role. Didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So it's not the player, has pass rush upside. He could potentially beat out Dwayne Carter. He could maybe find a way to get more snaps at Ed Oliver eventually. I don't know, but it just didn't make sense to me. And I didn't think 3-tech was that important. Some people have like different thought processes of like, how do you create pressure within a defensive line? You can do the exact same thing with a quality 1-tech as you can do with 2 3-tech defensive tackles, as long as you have somebody that's eating up that interior. And I would have much rathered, if we were to trade up for that, to walk away with Alfred Collins rather. I just thought that he was a better fit for what we were looking for. In an ideal world, I would have went Alfred Collins, and then I also would have got Deon Walker. Cool. So we have Ed Oliver and Dwayne Carter, who I think are more than serviceable and more than fine for this year and the next. But anyway, next up, you have Jordan Adcock, 5th round, pick 34. Quality, So right here, like right now behind Taron Johnson, like we all practically have heart attacks when Cam Lewis is second to him on the depth chart for somebody that needs to fill in for the slot corner position. I like this. It's cool. You'll probably end up making the roster. Hot take, I think Cam Lewis is probably going to get cut because I think this is an immediate upgrade right there. Solid insurance policy. Jackson Hawes, for me, I get that some people just hate Dalton Kincaid right now, and they think that like he's a bust. Like, oh, like we needed to find a tight end right in this draft. But guys, how you look at this whole situation right now, like, yes, maybe he could be tight end 3, but more than likely, this was a practice squad pick, right? Like this was a tight end 3. And it's not even so much that this wasn't a need for the team, but I'm trying to think about who else was on the board, like at this point. But like, you couldn't go out there and find a safety that has upside and coverage. So you couldn't go out there and find like a solid, speedy wide receiver. I want to say that Dante Thornton perhaps maybe went right before this, or maybe he went right before sort of Hancock, one of the two. But I didn't like the tight end here, where we could have ended up getting a safety that excelled in coverage. I forget like one name I was specifically looking for. I want to say Billy Bowman went around here too. Let me know, but that's it. And then next up, Dorian Strong, a triple dip at corner. And while I get that a lot of people predicted that this would happen, for me, I feel like this is just a training camp like selection, right? Like he's like a training camp body by itself. I know that Buffalo ultimately ended up so having a couple of meetings with him prior to it, but I look at the financial ties that this team already has with the cornerback room, right? So I look at it like this. You have Dane Jackson, who was signed, and we all know that Sean McDermott loves Dane Jackson, so there would be a miracle if, for example, he does not make this team. You have Tre'Davious White, who, while it's sometimes common, like we've seen it before where a player gets a 1 to 2 year deal where they end up getting cut after training camp by itself. But he's going to play for this team this year. I don't see us cutting him at all. Have Max Harrison, who's likely going to be starting CB2. You have Christian Benford on the outside. I think Jamarcus Ingram is probably going to make this team as well. He definitely showed his share of splashes and stuff like that. I just think Dorian Strong is just going to be a practice squad guy. Like we ended up drafting a practice squad contributor where I think we probably could have packaged up a couple of these later round picks to get up and grab some more scheme fits for us that could have been needle movers for this organization. That's me. I see Chase Luntz, and yes, he has a lot of upside out of Connecticut, teammate with Vandemark, which is interesting. It's pretty cool. But I think it would be a prayer and say that he ends up making this team. And who knows? Maybe he balls out in training camp and I'm going to be a very happy guy. I'm going to be a very, very happy guy. But I see him also being a practice squad guy. And then last but not least, you have Caden Prather, 7th round pick. He runs a 4.46 40. Yes, he's an ex receiver. He's out on from Maryland and stuff. Maybe there might be a couple of sections of Bills Mafia that dawns him as their camp sweetheart or something along those lines, but is where it stands for me. And so I don't think that he makes his team, right? In fact, us waiting this long for wide receiver, I think that don't be surprised if Buffalo ends up having a reunion. So with Amari Cooper here within the next couple of days. Don't be surprised if Brandon Beane goes out there and he really pulls his balls out and he goes for J-Mo Williams or Jordan Addison and makes a trade right in that department. I've heard a lot of murmurs around that right now. But regardless, this is where we're at. So all in all, say that I had to pick out like what I liked out of this draft, right? I feel like when I look at all of this, the only player that I think has the least amount of development period and the least amount of a learning curve and the best possibility of going out there and performing as high to their ceiling as possible as far as highest potential of playing at a high level this year is going to be Max Harrison, maybe Landon Jackson, maybe. And that would probably be toward the back half of the season. Love both of those picks. Love Landon Jackson because, again, I didn't think that we needed a day one contributor at the edge position since I do like the upside of Bosa. Love Gregory Rousseau. Still like AJ, for example. So I was fine with that. And then with Deion Walker, yes, I like the pick. But again, I think it's going to take a little bit for him to learn the system and sort of have him get coached out of some of his bad habits that are, I'd say, already out there. But I feel like we ended up picking a lot of guys that are going to be projects where we probably should have picked guys that were a bit closer to a solid scheme fit in positions of need. That's kind of where I'm at right there. But draft grade for me is probably going to upset some people, but is what it is. I have a duty and I owe you to give you my honest feedback and thoughts. And so I hope there's a part of you that appreciates that. C minus. C minus is probably where I would have to give this draft class. And it's ironic coming from me, right? Because say that you have been watching me for a while. I have typically been on the opposite side, the opposite end of many draft classes where Bills fans were very much grouped together and saying, oh my God, I hate that. Like last year's class. Loved last year's class. I loved it. I saw a lot of upside. Last year's class, I think, ends up taking the next step and becomes those contributors that we need. I think Keon has a really good season. And so I think Cole Bishop's going to have a really good season. I think Dwayne Carter is going to have a very, very good season, right? And I still think so at this day. And it's wild. This is the first time where I have ever felt underwhelmed from a draft class. And that's saying something, right? Like that is saying something. Now, how do I think this affects the Buffalo Bills? Nada. And so do I see us winning 12, 13 plus games this year? For sure. And so do I see us winning the AFC East? Damn right. And so do I think that we have a pretty good opportunity of like making it to the Super Bowl? Damn right. So we have Josh Allen on this damn team. Of course, we have the MVP of the league staring us in the face. Absolutely. We are Super Bowl contenders. And absolutely, we have a shot at winning it. But I feel like there's a lot left to be desired if you were to ask me. That's me. And trust me, I hope I am wrong. I hope that these guys can take a step immediately, at least particularly within the one-tech defensive tackle position, wide receiver, a speedy wide receiver as well. And then I really hope that Derek Forrest also ends up completely skyrocketing and becomes that coverage safety that we need. Because if not, like teams are going to be picking on those safeties for the vast majority of this all. Now, guys, do me a favor. Please smash the like button for me as you come in. Subscribe to the channel as well, and do not be shy. Please introduce yourself in the chat and let us know where you were tuning in from. I'm very, very excited to see what everybody has. Guys, in order to make sure that everybody has a good experience listening to this show, and for those of you that are listening to the replay of this show, if you have a question, just like our good friend here, the amateur genius, please do me a favor and begin it with a Q dash. So that way I can easily decipher between statements and questions. So I can try and get to as many great takes, because I do respect everybody that comes in here and lets me know their thoughts. So please label what you put in, especially if it is a question. Why get TJ when they could have gotten Mike Green? Now the Ravens get him, and he will more than likely be a menace in the postseason. Granted, that is speculation, but let's be real. We have amateur genius coming in. Great question, man. Great question. So for me, right? Like, I wasn't upset that we didn't go for Mike Green. I was not upset in the slightest at all, right? He's got some baggage. I'm sure you've heard of some of the sort of allegations that are centralized around him right now. And as far as the edge position, for me, I particularly wasn't too high on going for like some of the big names this year, because we have a pretty crowded room right at the edge department. And I think that we could have very easily shifted our focus on the edge rushing position in the 2026 season. Say, for example, Bosa ends up hitting free agency again, which I think that he will. I wasn't so much pissed about us passing on Mike Green, but more so I was kind of upset. Like, why are we not going for a one-tech defensive tackle? Like a true one, right? Like, I don't want a guy that can play one-tech defensive tackle. I wanted the guy that is a one-tech defensive tackle. That's what I wanted, right? Would have much rathered that we traded up for an Alfred Collins, and I feel like we would all be having a different conversation, right? Like, say that it was Alfred Collins and then Deion Walker, cool. And again, with TJ Sanders, baller, absolute baller. It was just confusing to me. It was very confusing to me. And the only thing that I believe could make sense is that Buffalo has intentions of moving on from Ed Oliver next offseason. That is the only thing that I was able to like wrap my head around there. Is what it is. Is what it is. Keith, what up, Keith? Hope all is well. Dan, I know you are not a fan of TJ, but I get the pick. We want to win rushing with 4, and TJ has the potential to be an elite pass rusher. Hopefully, he can prove it to you. No. Listen, I am completely on, like, right on board with you, right? Like, he's a solid athlete. He really, really is. And it's not like, right, like, several teams have run with 2 3-tech defensive tackles. And historically, Sean McDermott does not like big space eaters, like as a defensive tackle. But here's the problem, right? Like, here's the problem. Like, yeah, like we're all hyped about it, but that's often what we do, right? Like we say, okay, yeah, like McDermott doesn't like space eaters on the defensive line, but haven't you noticed a trend, right? We've typically had an undersized interior defensive line for basically his entire tenure here. And what happens, right? We can't get pressure, and we get gashed in the run game almost immediately. Right? It's kind of my thought process. That's kind of my thought process. Like, why are we so enamored with that sort of sense of thinking? That's me. That's me. But look, again, I am rooting for TJ Sanders. I'm rooting for the guy, and I hope it works. I don't want anyone to mistake the facts that I'm upset about the player. He's a phenomenal player. But I was just like, okay. All right. Right? It's sort of comparable to me. Like, so there's a massive crack in my roof. But rather than me addressing that, and so I buy a hot tub, right? Like, that's kind of how it is. Like, you have like a significant structural issue with your home, but rather than fixing the giant crack in your roof, you go out and you buy a hot tub and put it like right in your backyard. That's kind of like how I'm thinking about it, right? Like, it's nice. It's great. Hot tubs are sick, man. I'm going to be enjoying my Friday night, fool. But I still have a crack in my roof. That's the best analogy that I think that I could sort of put my like reasoning sort of almost statement. If Sanders is better than Oliver, and Oliver will be shopped in 2026. Yeah. Like, dude, like that is the only sense of reasoning behind it, as into why we prioritize somebody who is truly a 3-tech. Like, sure, he could transition over to a 1-tech, but it's going to be a hell of a learning curve, folks. It's going to be a hell of a learning curve, right? And just because I took a course in biology does not mean that I have a PhD, right? Like, that's like why I kind of hate takes like that. They're like, oh, like he has played 1-tech before. Like, okay, great. So I've driven a car. I'm not a NASCAR driver, right? That's sort of how I look at the entire thing. It's going to take a while, right, before you actually can end up getting to where you need to be. We have William has come in and said, I also think we should grab Isaiah Bond to try to re-sign Cooper on a 1-year deal. So Bond's got a little bit of baggage on him, man. And from what I understand, our first round pick also has quite a bit of baggage on him as well. So I mean, I don't know if Like with the Buffalo Bills, there's like, okay, so one is enough. So one is enough. But yeah, I'm not entirely convinced that he's on the board anymore. More. Man, the Bills, Jets, and Patriots got stronger. What the heck is really happening in Miami? Did they get Tua's replacement? Oh, yeah, man. It's going to be Quinn Ewers week 1, baby. I'm just kidding. I think Miami did pretty solid, actually. They did end up grabbing Kenneth Grant, which broke my heart a tad. I'm not going to lie to you. Then they ended up addressing some of the offensive line, which I liked, but I think that they're still in a particular like situation. Dan, thoughts on Landon Jackson? Love it. So do I. So much upside. So much upside. What I love about him is not only his tape right against Will Campbell, but he was also dominating the projected first offensive lineman off of the board next year in 2026. I love it. I do think that he needs to fine-tune a couple of things in his game, but luckily when it comes into the edge, like sort of department, we can afford to allow him to have that developmental year. Like we can afford to have him have like limited snaps at the beginning to fine-tune it, work with our defensive line coaches, and be a stud in 2026. That's why I love Landon Jackson, because we could afford to take on a project. There were just particular positions that I said, don't want that person to be a project. Don't want that person to be a project or a stash away type guy that's not going to be ready to play at a high level until 2026. Love the Landon Jackson pick because we have the insurance to allow him to get better and better right as the season goes along. That's kind of where I'm at. We got Nick has come in. Statement: we got murdered on third downs last year. Groot, TJ, Oliver, and Bosa. That's your answer on third downs, which is a bigger issue than stopping the run. I mean, hey, listen, I really hope it works, right? And so I really hope it works, Nick, right? I feel why a lot of me is just like, yeah, like I get it, but like here's the deal, right? That's been the Buffalo Bills. So that's been the Buffalo Bills defensive line strategy for the entire tenure of Sean McDermott, right? Like he hates space eaters. He hates big one techs. And what happens each and every single year? What's a trend for the Buffalo Bills? You know what I mean? It's like we can't get pressure and we can't stop the run. That's kind of how it is, right? So a lot of these guys we brought in, right? Like back like when Starr was in, right? Or back when Daquan Jones was there. So I hope you're right, Nick. And so I hope you're right. Landon equals Max Crosby. Dude, if Landon becomes Max Crosby, step away, please, man, because I'm about to crash. I'm with you 100%, Dan. Bills are planning on getting Tyleik Williams at 30, and Beane's contingency plan for defensive tackle wasn't what I would have done, but time will tell. Yeah, right? So I think the thing was that, especially since reports came out that we wanted Tyleik Williams, that he would have been the pick if he was at 30, I kind of don't want to hear that, oh, so the Bills never wanted a one tech. Come on. So miss me with that. Right? Like they wanted it, right? And then they ended up trading up and getting somebody that is a completely opposite type defensive tackle than what a Tyleik Williams was. That next best guy was Alfred Collins. Maybe they didn't like him, like based off of like some pre-draft research. And Mario, thank you so much for pointing that out. That is a great take. And out of the draft picks that were selected, or just anybody, who do you think the sleeper is? Sleeper? So I'm not sure about sleeper, but I can tell you who I think has the highest ceiling. Landon Jackson, for sure. Massive ceiling. And so I'm not including Max Harrison because he's going to be an absolute dog for us year one. Like CB2 is crazy. Like with our coverage scheme and corners, like we're solid. I wish our safety tandem was a hell of a lot better in coverage because where it stands, we're probably going to be running with Cole Bishop and Taylor Rapp. And both of those should be strong safeties. Like they are just way better at coming downhill and defending the run. We've seen a lot of tape where both of them end up getting burned, especially in coverage situations. Maybe Sean McDermott's strategy is hey, you know what? Like, we want to run with pass rushing defensive line, right? Like with 2-3 techs on the defensive line, and then Cole Bishop and Taylor Rapp, that's the insurance policy against the run because they're very good at it. And then maybe Maxwell Hairston, he's going to be plugged and played and implemented on the outside because he's fast as hell and he can cover a hell of a lot of ground, and he can serve as an insurance policy to some of the safeties who perhaps maybe a bit weaker right in the coverage scheme. But that's a lot of moving pieces, and a lot of moving pieces that don't allow me to sleep well at night, if you will. Hamlin and Epinesa still on this team is hilarious. Oh my goodness. Dan, and there is a video of Williams saying he was going to Buffalo if he was not picked beforehand. There is a video of Williams saying that he was going to Buffalo if he was not picked beforehand. Yeah, for sure. So like, we really wanted it. So honestly, 49ers fans wanted Sanders. You're good. So I'll tell you what, Jesse, we can swap, baby. We can swap, man. I will take Alfred Collins. And listen, it does make sense because San Francisco does like to have that like full like pass rushing type, sort of defensive line. Yeah, nah, dude, he's good, but like, so like it or not, like he's third on the depth chart right now when it comes into 3-tech defensive tackle. And 49ers fans wanted Sanders. You guys wanted Collins. Let's swap. Down. Yo. Oh, yeah. Where do I sign? And so if we all remember the first video of Landon with the sus pad clap, now look at him. Insane development from then and now, and I can't wait for more. I'm very high on him. I'm very high on Max Hairston. And to be completely honest with you, that's about it. Like, that's about it. So I see some upside from Chase Lunt, and so the offensive tackle out of Connecticut for depth purposes, but it's going to be an uphill battle for him to make this roster. That's kind of where my thoughts are. Beane should have gotten, oh man, you wanted Emanwari? Then the cornerbacks plus get a linebacker instead of a tight end. So maybe Sean Dolak will become a undrafted free agent for us. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. And so I love your take on Jackson, Dan. And with all my friends that are Razorback fans, we're saying we got a dog in Jackson, looking forward to training camp. Dude, I have a lot of faith in that guy. And like I said, like, we have a very crowded edge room right now where he's going to have the ability to develop this year. And in 2026, he could go off. Say that he goes off this year, please. I am welcoming it with open arms. It's just how it is. When will Beane be held accountable for not helping Josh? When will we help him? Oh, man, we have Carlisle. Breaking news. Bills are signing wide receiver Hall Presley, an undrafted free agent. He's a dog. I'm just kidding. I have no idea who he is. If anyone knows Hall Presley, let me know. We're going to start seeing some undrafted free agents come across the board, folks. We can react to. Dan, and do you think the Bills will bring back Von Miller for a veteran presence? No, I don't think so. If we go at all for like a reunion with any former player, I'm kind of thinking, I think Amari Cooper might be interesting for the Bills, right? So it wouldn't be ideal, but so it could be him. Like, as much as I'm trying to manifest that somehow we can finesse financially a Jordan Addison trade and or a J-Mo Williams trade or something like that, I'm not entirely convinced that Beane is going to make that move. Because, again, let's remember what this offense was able to do last year with the wide receiver room we had. Like, we were like the best statistical offense in Buffalo Bills franchise history. So it's kind of tough for me. It's sort of tough for me to like say, oh, yeah, like we're going to go ahead and trade for a wide receiver and pay him like next year, like $25 million a year or some crazy number like that, probably more. Yeah, I don't know. We have Proco coming in. Dan, let's trust the process. And as you have said already, if last year's draft picks mature, we are going to be much better. I am optimistic. Even the defensive tackle we got from the Steelers is going to play from week 7. You know what, dude? I love that positivity. And so I really love that positivity. Again, right? Say that these guys come out and they prove me wrong, I'm going to be one happy camper. And folks, do not mistake it. My expectations for what this Buffalo Bills team is going to be in 2025, it's not changed. I still have us being 13+ win team, running away with the AFC East, and you're damn right when I say that I think that we're Super Bowl contenders. As long as we have Josh Allen on this squad, we are Super Bowl contenders. It's been proven over and over and over again. So I'm feeling good about this season. I just wish Buffalo prioritized the positions of need a tad better. That's kind of where I'm coming from here. We have Hall Presley runs a 4.56 40, so no thank you. He's a camp body. William says, so I want to love this draft, but I feel like it was a bit of a choke and possibly the worst Bills draft I've seen on paper, but time will tell. It's good players, right? It's good players, but a lot of them are projects to fit in our scheme, right? Hopefully they develop faster than I think that they will. Carl is saying, is there any safety that you know the Bills get to sign an undrafted free agent? So to be honest with you, man, I don't know. I really, really don't know. Like normally when I look at prospects, I typically only look at the guys that are projected to go within the first 5 rounds. Like 6th and 7th round is the wild, wild west for me, outside of a couple of names that maybe I recognize during the Senior Bowl. We have Deion Walker is your 2-gap eater, and so you got your guy there. / so am I tripping? He played with a fracture in his back last season, so I imagine him healthy when you watch him again. For sure, man. Like my thing was that so a few things that I wish that he did a bit better. And yes, I understand that fracture like right in his back. So I didn't want to take a gamble, right? So I didn't want to take a gamble right on that one-tech defensive tackle position. I wanted Deion Walker, but what I wanted to do was double dip on 2 space-eating defensive tackles, 2 one-tech defensive tackles, and I would have been fine if Deion was the second defensive tackle taken off of the board if we were to walk away with Alfred Collins, right? Because I feel like there's question marks. Like there's just like, oh, like Walker, like, yeah, he had a fractured back last year. He'll probably be good. I didn't want with the any business of probably. I didn't want to deal with probably. And so I wanted to deal with, okay, this dude probably going to be a day 1 contributor. He's going to be able to hit that learning curve like that. But dude, trust me, I hope that he does it. He has all the size and the intangibles. I'm feeling pretty good about him. But training camp's a ways away, folks. I'm just assuming that the offense is going to be as successful as last year. And so we overlooked the many things that needed to go right in order for it to happen. That's before factoring film on our offense this year. Brent has come in. Think Beane just went with best available on some of these picks and decide draft. Hopefully it works out. I feel like that's kind of where we all are right now, is hopefully it comes to fruition. We got Buffalo Chris coming on in. He's saying special teams was a primary need in the draft, and most of these players will be contributors on special teams. It's a good take. So the tight end that the Bills drafted is probably a Quentin Morris replacement. He is going to probably play mainly special teams. Yep, more than likely. We have Buffalo Wings. A W draft for the Bills, except for the tight end pick. And so I wanted all defense, but it is what it is. Hope all the rookies stay healthy. Man, you know what, dude? It's funny. So I'm normally the beacon of positivity, but now it's my chat that's being the beacon of positivity, as I am just in a very dark place right now. You know what I mean? Oh, how the tables have turned. We have Amateur Geniuses coming and saying, thoughts on the Sanders fall? Read that his interview went horrible. And so you also read that he was being made an example of. It was a weird situation, man. So it was a weird situation about Sanders. So do I think that he was the second best quarterback this year? Yeah, I do. He's better than Jackson Dart. He's better than Dylan Gabriel. He's better than Jalen Milroe. He's better. So what that tells me is that his interview must have been really bad, like really bad. Like he must have came off so unlikable that a lot of teams are just kind of like, all right, forget this guy. Don't want him. And Cleveland said, you know what? We're going to go on ahead and we are just going to quadruple dip at this position and figure it out from there. It's really like it's really so an example for anybody. It doesn't matter how good you are or how smart or intelligent you are. Say, for example, you go into the job interview and you just have a bad job interview, you don't get the job. Like it's basically like that. But I can tell you that it had nothing to do with his talent because he's better. He's better than the QBs that were selected before him, of course, outside of Cam Ward. But then again, as many of you guys know, I don't think that any quarterback in this draft class will ever be top 15. And that's a hot take. And that's including Cam Ward. And so I do not think that any QB coming out of this class will ever be a top 15 guy. We have Da Vinci's Demons. And don't you think that who we got, who was affordable? And so how do we have the money for those names? Check the contract differences. We got Jay. Hawes can't even carry Dawson Knox's jock strap. F this while he's going to replace Knox. Wow. Wow, dude. And so I was not upset when the Patriots double dipped at left tackle. You should not be upset about that, man. The trenches are wildly important. If Cleveland didn't move with Jax for Travis Hunter, would the Charlie Elf Dog Dookie Browns still draft Shedeur Sanders? I don't know, man. I really don't know. We have this. Don't be surprised if Jordan Hancock was drafted to be your new free safety. I would love that too. I didn't know that about him, but I did know that more than likely he was going to be sat behind Taron Johnson because behind Johnson is Cam Lewis, and he's a liability out there. Say that he has chops at free safety, then I am all here for it. I am all here for it. I did like that pick about Jordan Hancock because we did need somebody behind Taron Johnson. But say that he has an upside of potentially becoming a free safety, then sign me up with that as well. We have Josh Allen MVP. I feel like we are forgetting that we were the number one offense last year. I'm pretty happy we focused on defense. Yeah, most definitely, man. We did focus on defense. That's for damn sure. We got Bill 716. I love this draft. Hawes, best blocking tight end, and Hancock will be our Swiss Army knife on defense at safety and at cornerback. And Jackson, awesome pick. Hairston, insanely fast. Harrison and Landon Jackson are my favorite picks that came out of this draft, bar none. Y'all need to watch the press conferences, man. Beane literally said that Hancock will play safety and the slot, but safety first. That's good. That's good news, man. That's good news. Spin is coming in. With the Dorian Strong can play, so with the inside as well, can he? But then again, so here's the deal. We will see. So with Strong can play inside as well. He's going to be a practice squad guy, though. And so unless like some sort of miracle comes out of the way. And so I'm an Ohio State fan, and Hancock is a good slot corner and can play free safety. Great pick for depth and development. I love it. Why does Beane hate receivers? So when you have a QB that can make anybody look good, I kind of get where he's coming from. How do y'all feel about Prather? He's not going to make this team. He's likely not going to make it, like barring some miracle. Dan, and do you think Tre'Davious White should move to safety? It might be best for him at this point of his career. I don't know. Yeah, dude, we'll see. So here's the deal, right? So when people say, hey, he can play safety, right? Like he can. That doesn't make me feel good, right? Right? And so if he has experience there, but like his strength is a different position, that for me, I'm like, okay. And so I took a course in biology. That doesn't mean I have a PhD in biology. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And just because I once wrote a thank you letter does not mean that I'm a Pulitzer Prize winner. slash a New York Times best-selling author, right? It's, yeah, right? That's kind of how I look at these analogies here, is that it's some positions I felt like we had no business of being, oh, but this player can. And so I wanted the player like, this player has and he will. That's what I was looking for. But hey, hopefully it works out. Dwayne has come in. Dan, and so you know my feeling on Sanders. And so I think it's a home run next to Oliver and feel that he will grow on you fast. That being said, how does it feel to finally lock down speed at cornerback? I feel like that's where everyone's kind of on the same page. Some people don't like the Max Harrison pick, which is interesting, but love the Max Harrison pick. He is going to be a savior for this team. Robert, what does drafting a safety mean for Jamar Hamlin? He's still going to be on this roster, right? Like, we signed him to a 1-year deal. I highly doubt we'll cut him. It probably means Derek Forrest, like, not unless Derek Forrest goes out there and just beats him out. I don't know. And so I will tell you what, though. And so the pick for Jordan Hancock, like, that really puts Cam Lewis's roster position in significant jeopardy. Significant jeopardy. But anyway. All right, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the Don Mafia Report. I am actually going to be on the road tomorrow, so I likely won't put out any content on YouTube. However, I am always active on X. I'm always active on TikTok and Instagram at Real Dan Mitchell. Say, for example, you guys want to follow me over on one of those platforms. I always put out content there. And then Monday, I will be filming all of my shows via a hotel. So I look forward to that hotel content. All right. Love y'all very much. Smash that like button on your way in. And we'll see you next time. Go Bills.